Hi, this is the Social Jello with Angelo show. My name's Angelo. I'm a social scientist, surfer, martial artist, and a whole lot of other things. Coming to you live from Kasai City, Japan, the Social Jello with Angelo show. Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome, new subscribers. I just did a podcast with Ramsey Dewey. I think this comes out next month, maybe in December. I'll try to see. I'm not sure when this is going to be released. But either way, I got back from China recently, and I want to thank my new subscribers for jumping on the show. I really hope you enjoy this. This is the Kajukenbo series. Today I'm interviewing John Hackleman, the Pitmaster, also known as Hall of Famer Chuck Liddell's coach. We talk about Kajukenbo. Before we get started, this podcast was a little bit different from the other podcasts that I've done because John is a pretty famous, popular guy. He's done a lot of other podcasts. I do recommend you check out Joe Rogan 444, Primal Radio Podcast number 74, and the Total Human Optimization Podcast number 103, because I tried to make them different from these three other podcasts and ask them questions that are a little more related to Kajukenbo. It was a great interview. And let's just get started with the show. I'm here with John Hackleman, the Pitmaster. What's up, man? How you doing?
Hey, what's up, man? Just living the life here in paradise.
Nice.
Couldn't be better. How do you complain? I even know. I couldn't even if I wanted to complain right now, people would laugh at me. I just got done testing like 15, 16 of my guys to black belt and different degrees of black belt. I'm here with my beautiful wife and some of my best friends in the world. We're in Honolulu, Hawaii. So I don't know. I mean, I could complain, but who would listen to me if I complained? Seriously. It would be a joke. Joke's on me. So anyway, life is great, brother. Thanks.
That's great, man. That's great. Yeah, I've been following your stuff on Facebook, and I noticed you're doing your black belt test right now. For some of my listeners, I kind of already did a pre-intro earlier about who you are and some of your background. But as some of the people that follow this YouTube channel and my podcast may know, this is part of the Kajukenbo series. And I guess real quick, I know some people know, and many people don't know about your connection to Kajukenbo. Would you mind kind of briefly mentioning how that worked or how that got started?
Well, I came up from Hawaii, Honolulu, Hawaii, the same place Kajukenbo started. And, you know, I was a blonde kid, and I always heard stories when I was like in 3rd, 4th grade, you know, about how bad it's going to be once you hit intermediate school, which is 7th, 8th, and 9th grade in Hawaii. And I always heard, like, once you hit that, they had, like, Kill Howley Day, and they take your lunch money, and they beat you up, and basically mistreat you. And I was like, I was so nervous about ever getting to junior high school or intermediate school. So I looked in the phone book, and I found a martial arts gym because I knew I had to start training on my own. You know, so I found a place. I caught the bus. I went down there. It was Walter Goodine, who's a Kajukenbo guy, and I walked in. I was like 10 years old. I walked in the dojo, and I just knew the second I walked in at 10 years old. I remember it was like it was yesterday. I walked in the door, walked into this like maybe 500 square feet at the most dojo, tiny little square. No, it's just like nothing, no frills at all. I just walked in. I was like, "This is it. This is going to be the rest of my life right here." I knew it. I started. I cut the bus down there every day. I would go down Saturdays. You know, I go Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I would go every day after school. I caught the bus there, and it was my home. They didn't have kids classes. They don't have anything pampered. Walter Goodine was a mean, rough, ex-con who was very violent, very gruff, very mean to a lot of people, had a seriously mean reputation. But I loved it, and I loved being around that kind of roughness. I knew it was going to keep me safe. I knew it was going to make me safe. And I started training with him at 10 years old, and I just never looked back. I was with him till the day he died, and he changed my life. If I didn't walk in that gym, if I did not walk into that gym back in 1970 in Honolulu, Hawaii, today, 2019, I'd be wearing a floral dress, sitting in a corner, married to a Samoan man, and he'd be throwing stewed tomatoes at me right now. And that's what my life would be like if it wasn't for martial arts. Martial arts saved my life, changed my life, and I don't have words to describe where I would be without Walter Goudin or martial arts. That's it. Thing.
So, kind of bringing it to, like, I know a lot of the people that listen to my show know what Kajukenbo is. I have a few new subscribers that came in that have no idea what Kajukenbo is.
Yeah. It's different. Let me just tell you. I don't know what you're going to ask, but I'll tell you this. It's way different than I see in the mainland. Like when I was here training and tournaments and training with other Kajukenbo guys and just the whole culture. Everything was, professor and master and we call them instructor but now like all of a sudden, and there was no like no Chinese influence, like the Sifu now, Sigung, SGwA, all that stuff wasn't in there. It wasn't anywhere in there. And there wasn't any kind of like soft art, soft kata or anything. It was just a really hard art. And then they brought in, I think I don't even remember when they brought in the Chinese aspect where there's the Sifu, Sigung, SGwA stuff. And it just seems different now. It's a little different. I'm not saying it's better or worse, but it's definitely different than the Kajukenbo I remembered in like 1970, 1971 in Honolulu, Hawaii. It just is way different. Like I said, not better, not worse, just different. There's a lot of ohana in Kajukenbo now, no matter where you train, but there was definitely a difference.
And kind of like back then, what were the popular styles? I mean, I know Kajukenbo even now isn't the most popular style. It's kind of like pretty amazing how you just kind of yellow page, I choose you, you found it, but like.
Bang. It was because, you know why it was? It was because the picture he had in the yellow pages, the picture he had in the yellow pages, it was like him doing like not him, it was just it was like a drawing of someone doing a back kick and landing on someone, and I just thought that was the coolest page. That's the only reason I picked that one. It was two bus rides away. Like anybody from Hawaii, I'm from Kamiki, like the end of Kamiki, and he was at 404 Pikoi, which is right across the street from Alamoana Shopping Center. So it wasn't like right down. I had to catch two buses, I had to transfer, so it was kind of far away. But the most popular systems here in Hawaii at that time, by far, there was a franchise or a group of schools called Japanese International Karate Center, JIKC, and I think it was a Shotokan based school, but there was a bunch of them all over the place. And then I guess there were some Taekwondo schools, but I don't really remember them. But I know there was some Kung Fu places like Choi Lei Fut, and there's a guy named Si Lum Pai. No, that was the style. Oh, his name was, I can't remember his name. But he had a system, Buck Sam Kong. Buck Sam Kong was his name. And he had some pretty big Kung Fu schools in the islands. But Kajukenbo was definitely the most popular one.
Cool. So, you already kind of mentioned a little bit about how the training with Godin was brutal. And then for my listeners, I definitely encourage you to listen to the podcast you did with Primal Radio, number 74, and also the Total Human Optimization podcast, number 103, where you kind of really go into depth about your history, your background, Your school
And Joe Rogan,
days. Yeah, the
Joe Rogan,
yeah,
444.
444. Yeah, Joe Rogan 444. Also, they go over a lot of the background and some of that history, his personal history. Um, but one of the questions I have. I was reading David Tavere's book on the
Tavar.
Kajukenbo, yeah, Tavares' book on the Kajukenbo Kempo connection,
Yeah,
and I was kind of surprised because I never really heard about this stuff till I read the book about how there was, I guess there was tension at one point
yeah,
with Walter
yeah,
Godine and everything that happened with Joe. Did you know,
yeah.
like when you were training with him and that kind of stuff? Did you? I don't know what the timeline is on this stuff. Was this happening while you were there, or did this already happen by the time you got there?
It already happened, and like so like he was Godin's self defense, and he called it. He changed it to Hawaii Chinese Kempo for a while, but it was Kajukenbo. I mean, all the forms, the techniques, the way we train. You know, we did the tournaments with the Kajukenbo guys, but it was Kajukenbo was also a like an association. So it wasn't just a system of martial arts; it was association, and he was kind of in the outs with some of it, you know.
Yeah.
So so we called it that, but he still hung around with all the Kajukenbo guys, like you know, they had one in Wahiwa, Brother Abe, and you know, Al Assumption, and some of the other Kajukenbo guys. But you know, he called it Chinese Kempo for a while, and then whatever got mended, the fences got mended, and then it went back to Kajukenbo. So I don't. That all happened like in the 50s, I think. So it was
Oh,
before me.
okay. All right. Cool. Yeah, I've always wondered because I never even heard of it. Like to me, it's all Kajukenbo. So like,
Yeah.
it was kind of weird. Well, I wasn't tripped out by it, but it did kind of catch me off guard.
Yeah, they do a lot of like Kaji Kempo likes to do a lot of like association and clubs, and you know I call mine Ohana, and it's not quite as political as the old Kaji Kempo. Like they have the KSDY, DI,
Yeah.
like different branches of Kaji Kempo. It's kind of like Krav Maga. I mean, it's just Krav Maga, but then there's like four different Krav Magas, and you're one of the four. And then with Kaji Kempo, they like different. You know, they have kind of different fractions of it, where you
Yeah.
can be, you know, KID. I don't even know them all.
Yeah.
But
Neither
it
do I.
doesn't.
I can't keep up with it
It,
actually.
and it really doesn't interest me at all. Like to me, I know where I came from. I know what Kaji Kempo is. I know what Hawaiian Kempo is. I know who Godin was. I know what a punch to the face will do, no matter what you want to call it. You could call it anything you want, and you punch someone in the face, it's all the same. So, you know, I'm not really that big on it. I don't do the Sifu, Sigung, Sijun, and all that stuff. I don't really think that's as Kaji Kempo as the old school Kaji Kempo, but it's a newer Kaji Kempo, and it's a softer Kaji Kempo, and it's better for families. It is Ohana. It's a great martial art, but it isn't as hard. If they did hardcore Kaji Kempo now, like they did when we were training in the 70s, nobody would come. They'd have like 3 students, and they'd have to close down. So, I mean, so it's smarter the way the Kaji Kempo kind of softened up and did that Chinese influence with some kung fu and stuff like that. So it's better in that respect, but it's nothing like old school Kaji Kempo was.
Yeah. Yeah. There's definitely a difference between how that ends up working out. Like when you're trying to teach the fighting styles and at the same time market to try to bring more people into your school, right? So
It's a tough one. It's
yeah.
my biggest challenge. In fact, my biggest asset is my name, Chuck's name, the UFC, Glover, all my association with that, because it's put me on TV and put me in the Joe Rogan and so people know me more. But it's my biggest liability too, because soccer moms and guys that just want to train and learn how to defend themselves, they think of the pit and they think of a cage and blood and Chuck Liddell knocking people out. So they steer clear of my gym more than they come to my gym because of my notoriety with the UFC. So I lose more students. It's more of a liability than it is an asset. If I didn't have if I didn't have the name with the affiliated with Chuck and Glover and the UFC, I might not be as well known like in around all over, but I guarantee you my school would probably be at least 3 times more successful as it is today.
So this kind of ties into a question I was going to ask you later, but I'll ask you now. Um, as I mentioned earlier, I live in Japan, right? And over here in
Okay. Yeah.
Japan, like, it's a very non-confrontational society. Like,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
it's unheard of, almost unheard of to see people fighting on the street. Um, Police will literally, like, politely talk people down. I've seen like drunk people like getting really aggressive with police, and like 4 or 5 cops will talk them down. It's a completely different type of society.
Yeah.
So one of the things like I've always wondered is like, I mean, I don't know what's going to happen in the future, but as you mentioned kind of already, how like back in the day there was a harder style. Do you feel like people were harder in general back then? Like not just Kajukenbo itself, but like society. Do you feel like society is getting softer or harder as time goes by? I guess that's one of my questions. It's going to tie into another one in a
Yeah.
sec.
Yeah. I think martial arts is more important now than it's ever been, ever, short of the samurai, warlord days, etc. I think I think our society, our culture especially, is becoming so soft. It's becoming so soft that it's scary. I mean, it's scary. We're I mean, I think we're predominantly, not we like you and me, but I think our males in this country are becoming more beta. We have more beta males than we've ever had. It's unbelievable, and martial arts is probably the only thing that can save it. I think martial arts can save our culture because I think our men are morphing. They're morphing into women, and it's scary. And it has nothing to do with genders, nothing to do with sexual preference or anything. I'd rather have a tough gay guy on my team any day than a wimpy beta male straight guy.
And again, you're
Yeah.
talking more about like the idea of someone who is willing to do the work, someone who's willing to, actually, like again, it has nothing to do with gender. It has to do more like
No,
a personality
no,
style. People who,
exactly,
and when we say aggressive,
exactly.
like people, I think people get aggressive kind of twisted. I'm gonna wait for this ambulance to go by real quick.
Okay. I'm already. Yeah, go on.
I think what happens is a lot of people get the word aggressive twisted with someone who's like in your face being angry or mean. And really, like, when I think about aggressive in Kajukenbo, I just think about someone who's willing to stand up for what they believe in, someone who's willing to fight for what they believe in, if you know what I mean. And I think I lost. Okay, there you are.
No,
Okay, cool,
I'm right
cool,
there.
cool, 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 cool. Yeah, and I think that's what kind of gets twisted
Yeah.
up
This,
when people
this is
mention like when people mention beta male, like some people are like, oh,
yeah.
he's talking about gender, he's talking about sexual preference, and you made it really clear. Like we're talking about more about the
No.
kind of person who has no backbone, like the kind of person who, no matter what side of a political spectrum they stand on, they don't have whatever it takes to actually stand up and defend what they believe in, right?
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. I'll take it to an easier, because what you believe in and stuff like that, fighting for this and that, that's great, and that is an aspect of it. But to me, I can make it a lot easier. If you're walking down the street and somebody attacks your wife, okay, a beta male will call 911. Okay, a beta male will call 911. An alpha male will jump in without even thinking. So that, to me, that's like a simple one. And then you can get to more like, and then I broke it down a little more. I came up with this one. It's more of a scale. So you're walking down the street. Somebody grabs your wife's ass, right? So what is are you an alpha male, a beta male? What are you gonna do? So it's like he grabbed her ass, but then he walked away. So legally you can't go attack him. So what do? I mean, so it puts you in a quandary. Like, you want to be an alpha male, but so now you have to get creative with your alpha maleness, or else you're going to go to jail. Because if you don't, is there any cussing on this?
No, yeah, you can say whatever you can cuss all you want, man.
Okay, so like you got to think of it this, and then you got to deal with it. It's a good alpha beta question. Somebody grabs your wife's ass. and you see it, and then you don't do anything, and your wife's gonna look at you like, you fucking bitch. Some guy just grabbed my ass, and you're not gonna do anything about it. They're never gonna suck your dick the same again, ever. Okay, that's true. That's because she's gonna look at you like that every time, and she's always gonna want a guy that's gonna protect her. She's gonna want like a guy that's gonna stick up for her, a guy that's gonna beat the shit out of the guy that, you know, grabbed her ass. So she's gonna want that guy, even though she pretends now, all in this genderfied, you know, fluid gender society. Everybody, or it's Jew, yeah. They say, you know, that it's you know, it's, they say they wouldn't, but it's becoming that, and so you want to do that, but then again, let me tell you what happens, and this is why it's a scale, because if you change from alpha to aggressive, that's bad. That makes you might not be a bully, but you're kind of pushing it past where you need to.
You definitely
So
get into that line, right? You're definitely getting to that line when you're pushing there, yeah.
You don't, and I'll tell you what happens. Like, she'll never suck your dick again the same way if you don't protect her if someone grabbed her ass, because women are like that. They pretend they want the guy that's soft and sensitive, and they want a guy that's really sweet, and he understands me. If a guy understands you, that's because he's too much like a female. And if he understands you, that's a bad sign. You might as well be with a woman. But then if you do beat the guy up, let me just tell you, this is the problem with being the alpha male. You do beat the guy up because he grabbed your wife's ass, and you do want her to suck your dick great again. So you beat up the guy. Now, guess what? You just got arrested for assault and battery because it wasn't self-defense. The guy was walking away after he grabbed her ass. So guess what now? Now your wife will look at you like the macho guy and the alpha male. So when you get out of prison, she'll suck your dick really good. But while you're in, she'll be sucking someone else's dick. You got to remember that. And that's the quandary. That's why us being an alpha male is much harder than being a beta male, because with a beta male, you're harmless, you're weak, you're soft. You know you're not going to do anything, so you'll always get that mediocre blowjob, but at least you'll always be around because you'll never take a chance in life. Bing.
So I think, again, we're going back on that balance, and martial arts is about balance, right? So it's back to that balance. If I'm hearing you straight here, you're talking more about the idea of someone who's a coward, who at all costs avoid confrontations at the cost of people they love getting hurt, as compared to someone who's going to step up and protect their family, protect their loved ones.
Protect their life, their family, their loved ones, their country. You're not going to see very many. You don't see beta males in the infantry. You don't see very many beta males in the special forces. You know what I mean? In the infantry, in the ranger schools. Yeah, those are all alpha males. You know, and the guy that's not going to protect his wife, like most won't, they're the betas, and beta males aren't better because they're peaceful. They're not peaceful. They're harmless, and they're weak. And there's a difference between being peaceful, right? If you can kick the guy's ass, but you don't, that makes you peaceful. But if you can't and you don't, that just makes you a bitch.
All right, cool. I think that clarified.
Bang.
That definitely
All right,
clarified.
we got it.
So coming back to our story here, was there any? Because I know you mentioned before how you call your style Kempo with an M, right?
Right. Yeah.
And when you decided to do that, was there any conflict when you decided to say, okay, I'm not going to call this Kajukenbo, I'm going to call this Kempo with an M? Was there any conflict with any of the people you work with over that, or was everything smooth?
No, in fact, the only person I really cared about, honestly, the only person I cared about that it meant anything to was Godin. I could care less about anyone else in martial arts. So I asked him, and he absolutely loved the idea. He loved the pit. He loved my Hawaiian Kempo system. He came for like my first three black belts tests until he passed away. He loved what I was doing with the pit. He loved it, and he always said he wishes he did it that way because he still did the katas and the forms and the taiokas and the grab arts and the punch tricks, etc., where I didn't. And I asked him, I said, hey, do you mind if I don't do that? He's like, fuck, I love what you're doing, man. He loved it. So he would like, he came over for Chuck's black belt test and some of my other black belts. So he loved what I was doing. He gave me his full blessing, and that meant everything to me, and nothing else mattered.
And then I know I kind of fucked up the timeline on this next question, but when did you know that you wanted to teach? Because there's always that moment where you come in, you want to know how to fight, and
Yeah.
you learn, you start learning how to defend yourself, and you become a fighter. But being a teacher is definite, and then again, in your case, becoming a coach, right, a professional MMA, UFC coach. When did you know you were transitioning more from that fighter role to that teaching role?
That happened. That I was always a little of both. Like even in my early days, even when I was in the army, I was boxing for the army, but then after work, after I got out of like work every day, I would go to the local gym and help train some kids. So I like doing that. I don't know why, I just like doing it. And then when I got out of the army and I became a registered nurse and I was still fighting at the time, but I needed somewhere to train because I worked a lot of shifts. I worked a lot of overtime, night shift, so I couldn't always get to the gym during the day, and I had fights coming up. I mean, that's when I was fighting. I was world ranked, so I built a gym. I had a gym built in my backyard, a 400 square foot gym. So I had a heavy bag, some weights, and I trained makiwara. So I trained back there, and then pretty soon, like, I had buddies at work say, hey, can you just show me some stuff, or can I train in your gym and get in shape? And next thing you know, it was the pit. Guys are getting the pit tattoo. I expanded a little bit, and it started getting pretty popular. And then when I moved up, so that's when I knew. I guess I was still fighting towards the end of my career, but I was more interested in teaching. And then when I moved to San Luis Obispo in 1990, and I got Chuck Liddell right away and some other guys that wanted to actually fight, then I went from teaching like our Hawaiian Kempo system to training fighters. So, and I was still working. So I was teaching, training fighters, and also working as an RN. So and then I did more of the teaching than the fighting, and then pretty soon I retired altogether from fighting, and I just kept training. Like Chuck fought I was the main event of one of Chuck's fights, and I wrapped his hands, then I wrapped mine, then I worked his corner, then I went out and fought. So we're doing that for a while, but I hardly had any fights after that, and then I just became a full-time trainer.
All right, so that's when you kind of and by that, I'm guessing at this point, this is long after you've gotten your black belt, then, huh?
Yeah, I got my black belt in 77, I think, and this was way after. When I was, to be honest, like I would help out with a class now and then at Goodings, but there wasn't much, junior teaching or anything. I was never, and if I did, it was nothing I really cared about or loved to do. So I wasn't, it started in like 90 for me really starting training people.
So kind of so that's when you knew you wanted to teach. You got the pit together, right?
Yeah.
People started asking you to teach, and you started transitioning more into a teaching role. What do you think is or was your biggest challenge for you as a teacher? Like when you decided to say, okay, I'm not going to be a fighter anymore, I'm going to focus more on teaching. Or what were some of the challenges that you came across when you did this?
I think there's a couple. I think number one, and a lot of trainers have this one. I was trying to like teach everybody like I fought. like teach everybody my way. And I realized real quick, like half of my fighters right now on my fight team are grapplers. They'd rather take it to the ground and keep it to the ground. Everybody thinks of us as only a striking school, but half of my fighters are all about grappling. And then half of my fighters like striking more. Probably a third, and then a third will go either way. Um, so, so that's kind of a tough one. It's like, I can't teach everyone the way. I just say throw a left hook, But some of my guys don't want to throw a left hook. They want to do a double leg takedown. So, so I gotta go there with it. So I go there with it more, even though it's not my cup of tea or something I love as much. But I can't always think about it the way I did it. And I have the problem with that with my regular students too. And my wife always calls me on it. We know, John, you had it tougher. You trained tougher when you were younger. We know how tough it was. But not everybody's like that, John. Not everybody's like you, Mr. Tough Guy. So it kind of irritates me when she says that, and I usually call her the C word. But to be honest, she's right. And when she calls me on it, I realize I'm doing it too much, because not everybody's going to train like me. Not everybody's going to train like Chuck. Not everybody's going to train like Rick Metzler, one of my top black belts. Not everybody's going to train like Glover, so everybody's in their own. Every one of my black belts is a black belt to them, not to me, because I can't expect them, I'm going to have some objective things where everybody has to do, but almost all of my stuff, techniques especially, it's their best left hook. It's their best takedown. It's their best this. It's their best that. Not mine, not Glover's, not Court McGee's. I can't, and one of the reasons it's harder for me is because of my fighters. I have such high-level fighters, so sometimes I train my regular guys. The bar is really hard. It's really high,
Yeah.
So it's like I have to realize that not all my guys are going to be like those guys. They're going to be their own version of that, and as long as it's their best version of themselves, then to me they're a black belt in their own skin. So not all my black belts look different. A lot of people don't like that, like martial arts guys, because I don't do katas and they don't have to do specific things all the same. Every one of my black belts is different, and it's just part of my family, and I don't expect them to be exactly the same, but they have to be a black belt in their skin. So that's the difference I do.
And how do you kind of balance that? Because I know, I jump between both worlds. I'm a Kajukenbo practitioner, but I visit MMA gyms and I train in MMA. I jumped in just to make sure that I was well-rounded. But obviously, like you just mentioned, MMA is not for everyone, right? And one of the things that happens in Kajukenbo is you do have people that are doctors. In your case, you were a registered nurse. Like, how do you kind of get a balance between your MMA fighters and then your everyday, I don't know, doctors, teachers that are coming just to do some martial arts on the weekend or whatever?
Funny you brought that up, because out of all my students that aren't fighters, like I have a fight team, and then I have my Hawaiian Kempo students. My fight team, they're all Hawaiian Kempo students as well, and they get belted just like my regular Hawaiian Kempo students. But all of my Hawaiian Kempo students don't want to be MMA fighters. So there's a dichotomy there. But one thing is, it's funny, is my toughest, best fighter in the whole Hawaiian Kempo gym that I have, that's not a fighter, is a pediatrician. He's a doctor. So it's funny as shit. It's funny as shit watching him drop people, and it's like, you're a pediatrician, for God's sake. So and there's no real difference. Let me tell you the difference. It's the same goal. Everybody has a different goal, but it's the same process. The same process is you train hard, you train intense. Everything has to be intense, because every time you get jumped, it's never a jog. Every time you get jumped in the street with the adrenaline, with your fucking heart rate pounding, it's always a sprint. So everybody has to train that way, whether you're in the Hawaiian Kempo system or not. Everybody has to train for a hard fight, because in the street or the cage. So the training is almost identical. The only difference is um, for the goal. The goal in the cage is a trophy. It's money. It's a title. It's a ribbon. And in the street, it's your life. It's just saving your life. It's just staying alive so you can go home with your family. And we train, so it's different, but it's the same. And almost all the techniques interchange. Almost every single technique that an MMA fighter is completely effective on the street. And almost every technique you teach for your students, your street students, is effective in the cage. There are a few, only a few, probably I can count them on one hand, that don't transfer over. And that's a really easy fix. So it makes it easier on me because my fight team trains almost exactly the same and as my Hawaiian Kempo team, as my Hawaiian Kempo class. So it's easy for me on the curriculum every week because I'm teaching them all the same things. The only things I change are like if I'm doing an eye gouging day, or eye pokes, etc. But that's just like a handful of techniques. Other than that, it's all the same. A left hook's a left hook. It's going to knock you out in the street, the cage, the ring, anywhere, right? So almost everything is exactly the same.
And then, have you ever had a situation, especially now, like, because I haven't been doing this as long as you have, but I have, in my personal experience, when I first started teaching Kajukenbo, I had more people that wanted to just more do Kajukenbo for the traditional aspects of it. But after a year or two of me teaching, MMA just got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And I had more people coming in wanting to do MMA, wanting to be an MMA fighter. I have people walking out, I want to be an MMA fighter, they'd say. Have you ever had a situation where someone told you they want to be an MMA fighter, but you just didn't feel they might have what it takes to actually do it, or you were afraid that they just didn't have the personality for it and they're going to end up getting hurt?
No, and it's gone the other way too. As I've had the opposite side of that too, where guys came just to train, and next thing you know, they're winning titles in MMA. But but everybody, almost everybody, unless they've proven themselves, everybody that comes to me and says I want to be an MMA fighter, I sign them up. They have to sign up for the Hawaiian Kempo class, and I'll give them a quarter. 1 quarter. So every quarter, I reassess and they get their belts, etc. So we go on a quarterly system. So I'll put them in the Hawaiian Kempo system class, and the techniques are the same, and they even so it's almost the same kind of training, almost, not quite, but almost. So I see how they do after a quarter. Then they've probably been roughed up a little bit during sparring day, and they've done some grappling, they've done a lot of conditioning. So we'll see how they are after 3 months. If they still do, then I'll transfer them over to the fight team, and if they don't yet, I'll keep them there and see how they like it, if they still want to. And sometimes they change their mind, no, I'll just stay with this. Or have some guys, like I said, the opposite. They just want to do Hawaiian Kempo, and a couple years later they go, hey, I want to fight. So it goes both ways. But yeah, I've had that, and I have a lot of guys that I've looked at and thought, oh, this guy's never going to make it, and then I was wrong. Because you can't tell until the bell rings in the cage, not the bell rings in sparring. Some of the worst sparrers are great fighters, and some of the best fighters are terrible sparrers.
And what do you do in that situation if you have a fighter who, let's say they were a great sparrer, and you put them in the cage, and then they're just getting hurt in the cage? Well, when do you know when to pull the plug, I guess?
I don't really pull the plug. I'll throw in the towel like every fight. I mean, if I see a guy getting hurt, I'm known. Like I've known for throwing in the towel.
Yeah.
I'm known. All the referees know that if I'm in the corner, their job's a lot easier because I'm throwing the towel in before they have to think, should I stop it or not? If it's close and my guy's getting hurt, my towel's going in. But
yeah.
So I'll throw in the towel every time they fight if they're getting hurt. But I'm not gonna, unless I think they're getting like long-term hurt and really chronically injured. They can fight as long as they want, because I don't want to. If it's their passion, if it's in their, if they love it. It's one of the reasons I got such a big thing with Dana White. I mean, he was telling Chuck, you have to retire. And it's like, I didn't want Chuck to fight ever. I mean, Chuck wanted to fight, and I okayed it to work his corner, but I didn't want him to ever fight, so he did. But he loves it. Nobody, Dana White, nobody should tell somebody else when or where. I mean, it'd be like if there's a few fights and they didn't make money, so maybe Chuck could go in and say, hey, Dana, you can't be a promoter anymore. You know, you can't tell anyone what to do or how to live their life and, you know, take away from what their dream is. You know, if you see them getting really badly hurt, you could really have a hard conversation with them. If it's one of my family members, I'll pull the plug. But other than that, you know, the best I can do is protect them each fight. I can't, if they're not going to be good, not everybody's going to be a Chuck Liddell, Glover Teixeira, Court McGee, Ramsey Nijem. Some guys are going to be, you know, losing fighters. I mean, half the fighters out there are going to be losing fighters, but they love to do it. So who are we to say, well, since you're not living up to the standards of the UFC, you can't do it anymore? But that might be what they love. You know, maybe they love playing tennis and they suck at that. You can't make them not do that either. I mean, more people get hurt playing football, soccer, than they do actually in MMA. So I don't know. I take a hard line on trying to control what people do with their life, but I will throw in the towel if I'm in their corner.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, you'll support them to do what they love in the safest way possible. If that's you know what I mean?
Yeah. And if I'm in their corner and I see them get their bell rung, the towel's going in. I've had referees tell me, "Hey John, it's too early. You're stopping it too early." No, that's my fighter. It stopped.
Yeah.
I've had doctors. Doctors are the most conservative when it comes to that stuff, and they'll say, "Hey, this cut isn't bad enough, John. You shouldn't stop it." I was like, "Sorry, you know, this is my guy. I want it stopped." You know, so I always lean on the side of you'll fight another day, unless it's a title fight or unless they're making, you know, if the difference between winning and losing is $1 million and that could change their life. Yeah. Then I'll take a little more risk for them. I'll let them take a little more risk because that could set them up. That could change their whole life. But especially an amateur fight or a low-paying fight, that towel's there.
Cool.
If they get hurt.
So, you've been doing this for a long time, man. What do you think about this newer generation of MMA fighters as compared to when you were doing it back in the day with Chuck Liddell?
No, they're so much better. It's not even funny. It's like night or day. It's like they're just so much better. They're not tougher, but they're not any less tough. They're the same toughness as they've always been. They've always been just like they are when it comes to toughness. Skill-wise, they're fucking 10 times better, without a doubt. So it's scary because they're 10 times better, but they're just as tough. It's like it's a whole different game now than it used to be. I mean, whole different game now.
Yeah, it's something else as time goes through. So, I'm almost finished up here. I have 2 more questions for you.
Okay.
So, I've read and heard about you setting up an online program.
Yeah.
And you know, there's stuff around, like a lot of people have mixed feelings about online programs.
Yeah.
I guess, how do you mind talking about some of the structure of your online program and maybe some of the critiques or criticism that online programs get, and what kind of safety measures you're putting in to ensure that doesn't happen to your online program?
Yeah, I mean, like the safety measures is the videos, I guess. I'm going to see what they're doing. Interactive. They're going to have interactive training and videos. So, and yeah, I guess so I'm going to see what kind of conditioning they are, what kind of what kind of techniques they do. Um, yeah, so I guess that's it. And to be honest, like most guys that want to be with the pit and be affiliated with Hawaiian Kempo, usually they're a type of person. They're the hardcore person. It's usually not a bunch of guys that want to do like a system, like, I don't know, a softer system. So usually it's kind of it starts off harder. Sure, there are a couple guys that aren't going to make it, just like that come and walk in my door. They're just not going to make the belt. Um, but um, but I just see it attracting more like-minded people like myself, just because of my say reputation, culture, etc. So that's the way I see it. And there's a lot of schools like that say that, I mean, they question, like, I don't know the word, like, um, being softer and stuff. But I've gone to so many black belt testings that I'm in real that aren't online, and they're doing their testing, and I'm watching it, and I'm like, they're testing for like brown and black belt. I'm watching it, and it's like, I couldn't be any softer with my online guys than some of these brick and mortar gyms teach. So it's like I can't be any softer than that, even if I tried.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just think, you know, um, yeah, I just think that, like I said, mainly I think people like that want my stuff and Master Wong. They're that way already. And then, like I said, I'm checking. If you're watching somebody do, you can't lie about, unless you're a magician when it comes to video lying. But I can see how fast you're doing. You can't lie about how many burpees you're doing in 3 minutes if you got a video.
Yeah.
You can't lie how good your left hook is if I'm watching you do it on a video. So to me, that's it right there. And I do a lot of online courses myself, and it's like, wait, I'm learning all this shit online. I'm learning it really good. Some of it's even physical. My wife watches some of the best techniques and some of the best workouts she gives her boot camp are stuff that she learned online. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And now she's teaching it. So I see where there's kind of a, just like everybody used to say, never throw a head kick in the street. There's some kind of common fears or common commonalities that people share, like, oh, online this, but they also said those are the same people that would say never throw a head kick in the street or in the UFC. Now we see where that went, right?
Yeah. Well, I think
So
a lot of the things that people are worried about whenever you talk about
yeah,
online programs is they're always worried that somehow it's going to become one of those certification things where someone just goes to your website and prints out a certificate. You've seen those kind of black belts that just, you got
yeah,
there's people that are willing to take someone's money, and there are people that hand
yeah.
out certificates. And I think that's one of the things, whenever you mention online programs, that's one of the things that traditional martial artists get kind of freaked out about.
But if you've been watching some of my social media, you've been seeing my black belt test. So don't forget, we're going up to brown black. So anyone that wants to get their black belt, go all the way to black belt, whether they're online or in person, they're going to have to come to either do it at my gym, because we have the testings there sometimes, but almost always it's in Hawaii. And you can, no matter how much you've lied or how much you faked, even if you fake the videos, when you're on Wilhelmina and you're at the bottom of the hill and you have to get to the top in 14 minutes, you can't fake that anymore. I mean,
Yeah.
so that's when I got you, in the beach, and I got Glover Teixeira throwing you in the water and slamming you in the soft sand and making you do, burpee after burpee, you can't fake that anymore. So they might be able to fake their way up a couple of ranks. I don't know how, because I'm going to watch to get every rank, they have to send me a video of the test I sent them. So the black belt, it just won't happen. So they might be able to say, hey, I got my brown belt at the pit. Okay. Oh, wow. Because we're not like brown belt, like it's a big deal with jiu-jitsu, because jiu-jitsu is all about all about for tournaments. So that's why they sandbag belts, and they hold your blue belt forever. They hold your purple belt forever. They hold your brown belt forever, because they call that sandbagging, because they take longer to get their belt because they want to do better in the tournaments, right?
Yeah.
So it's better for them to have a blue belt that's been there for 18 years as a blue belt. He's winning all the tournaments as a blue belt, but that looks good at their school. So so we could sandbag any way they want, but we don't do that at the gym. To me, my biggest, if bragging rights for our gym isn't blue, purple, or brown, it's black. So it's really nothing. Nothing means nothing until you get your black. And to get your black, you have to do it in front of me personally. So so there's kind of a that kind of make sure that's a safeguard right there.
Yeah.
And like I said, even doing 3 minutes of burpees, and I tell you have to do X amount. I know right there, if you can do that much, I know you're in shape. You can't do it without being in shape. You can do you can walk all day long and be out of shape. You could hike a little, but you cannot do 50 burpees in 3 minutes unless you're in shape. You have to be in shape to do it. You just have to, and then you have to be able to throw this technique and that technique. So I'm seeing the technique. So you could fake me if you want to take all that time and energy and pay me while you're doing it, and then fake yourself all the way up to brown belt. You could do that. It's going to be a lot of time and energy and money, and then you'll just never get your black, so it won't mean anything. It's like taking the chick out, spending a shit ton of money on her, being nice to her, spending all this time and energy faking her, but then when she gets home, she doesn't give up the sex. So it's none of it. It was all done for nothing.
So again, like, just to clarify,
it all goes back to sex. I know. Sorry about that.
No, it's all good.
Sorry.
I like the analogy. I really do. I really do. But just to clarify to my listeners and the people who are watching, again, they actually have to come into your school to take the black belt test. They're not doing a black belt test online. You're not handing out black belt certificates online. They actually have to come in, physically do the black belt test, experience the sparring, and that's how they're going to earn their black belt, just like any other black belt would.
Yeah, and like I said, you could fake your way all the way to black belt, all the way to brown belt online and on the videos, but it's going to be damn hard to do. You'd have to have, be able to do camera tricks and some kind of fake videos, because I'm watching you do your video burpees. I'm watching you do your push-ups. I'm watching you, do your exercises and your techniques. So you can't fake that, really, unless, like I said, it would take so much energy for you to fake it just to get to your brown. And then at the end of the day, you're not going to get your black anyway unless you pass in front of me. So I like the way it's set up. Master Wong and I did it, and I really like him, and I like his energy. We are different in certain aspects of our self-defense beliefs and training. But together, I think we make the perfect combination. And I really like the way it's turning out. And when you look at schools and they're doing katas, they're doing, actually 2019 now, they're doing katas for their black belt, and they're not having to do the kind of conditioning I'm doing. But then I'm the one that might be, giving a black belt. So it's kind of comical to me, but whatever. You're never going to hear Joe Rogan say, "Oh, John sold out."
Yeah. Again, I think you pretty much clarified it. Most people the most critique I've ever heard of online programs is the idea that you're gonna end up getting a black belt who's never fought, and that's like, and it happens. I mean, it's not that you're doing it, and I mean, I had to ask my instructor permission or his blessing to put some stuff online, because I have a student that I train that I only see once a week, so I had to start showing him stuff online, and I made a few YouTube videos for him. But when I mentioned to my instructor, he's like, whoa, are you going to be promoting online? I'm like, no, I'm making techniques available so he can watch them. That way when I come and see him, I can face-to-face check on him, make sure he's doing it. But there is those people that, like I said earlier, they have their programs, and essentially people can fake, or I don't know if they care or don't care, but they end up getting a black belt and never fought anyone or know how to fight. I think that's where most of the controversy lies. But you definitely clarified that. That's not what's going on at all. You're still testing. They still have to fight. They have to do everything that any other black belt would do.
Yeah, they have to. And I'm not as big on the fighting as I was, but it's still probably more than your typical any other martial art gym out there. We probably push our guys physically hard. My wife's son, my stepson, actually went for his black belt this weekend. That's my stepson. He got dropped with a liver shot by Glover Teixeira yesterday. Ooh. He got dropped, like just flat out dropped. So I mean, there's no faking that shit. You know what I mean? It might, So and they all had to get in there and get roughed up pretty much. Her other son got roughed up by Glover, and I have a couple other, a couple of my black belts, and a couple of them were actual pro MMA fighters. So I mean, so they all go through. And I don't endorse fighting, and I don't think you have to fight to get a belt. Just like you don't have to get shot to get you'd be a good gun guy like in the army, or you don't have to get stabbed to be a good knife guy. But you do have to go through some sparring and drilling and simulated fighting. I don't do it the way I used to, but then again, I don't. I'm okay with that because I'm a little more conscious of brain damage and concussions.
Yeah.
But when it comes to sparring and stuff, I still think we're at the top of the food chain when it comes to traditional martial arts schools and sparring.
Oh yeah, I mean, well, I think your fighters and the people that come out of your gym speak for themselves, right? So.
Yeah.
Well, John, I really do appreciate you coming on the show, man.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you.
As a wrap-up question, I guess, what's your advice for someone who has no idea about martial arts, but wants to start training, and they don't know where to start, and maybe they don't have access. Maybe they live in the middle of nowhere. They don't have somewhere to train, or they don't know what's real and what's not. What's your advice for someone like that?
I would say, without a doubt, check out our online course. Yeah, I'd say without a doubt, because that's what it's for. But with that said, if there is a good gym in your area, right, then you'd have to walk in it and get your feel. You just have to see how you feel in it. And then I would ask my instructors, like the instructor, even if it's for your kid, like, is there a physical test for each belt? Am I going to be learning a lot of katas and forms for each belt? You can ask those questions, but the main thing, without a doubt, is just your feel, just how you feel. And if you see techniques being taught that you have to think like, how would that work in the street? If you have to actually think, how would that technique work in the street? You should probably go somewhere else, because every technique that they're teaching you should be something that you could easily equate to you getting jumped in the street and using that technique. Whether it's a double leg takedown, a single leg takedown, a left hook, a head kick, a spinning back kick, it doesn't matter. But if you see like the guy's hands are in a different weird place, and he's throwing a technique that looks that you just you don't understand, it's, maybe I would ask for an explanation. And if he says something like, oh, it's you wouldn't understand, that's like, it's the magic, I would run.
That's some solid advice. It's definitely never magic.
No. Yeah.
All right, brother. Well, again, thank you so much for being on the show, man.
All right.
And for my listeners, stay tuned for the wrap-up. So, that's a wrap. Thanks again for checking out Social Jello with Angelo. If you're listening to this on iTunes, Last FM, one of the multiple radio stations that are out there, please jump on YouTube, look up Social Jello with Angelo, SGwA podcast, hit subscribe. That's all I ask. If you want to check out my website too, hey, that's cool, www.socialjello.com. That's at the end of all this stuff. But mostly I'm just trying to get more subscribers on YouTube. The Kajukenbo series is going great. I have some more interviews coming up. I try to release at least one or sometimes two of these a month. I am also busy. I have my own thing going. So I try to kind of keep you all up to date with what's going on in the Kajukenbo community, as well as other topics. If you want to be on the show, feel free to send your email either in the YouTube comments or my website or however else you want to contact me. Send me a message on Facebook, Twitter, whatever. I'll get back to you, and we'll have you up here, and you can talk about whatever you want. Even if it's not martial arts related, I could put you on the regular podcast as well. All right, y'all. Take care. Peace.
Anti-racist fucking punk.